Hey guys, welcome to the Freezerworks 2019 Learning Series, your visual guide to our sample management software. I'm sure that when many of you use Freezerworks, you are constantly changing the list view or samples entry form to see and enter data applicable to your job. Or you find that the quick search tool at the top of your homepage is sort of pointless, as the field isn't one you even use. Or, when using Move Aliquots or the Aliquots Entry Freezer Graphic, you're not sure what the colors are supposed to represent. All of these problems and more can be alleviated by setting up your user preferences. User preferences can be found by opening this user menu on the homepage and selecting My Preferences. You can also find preferences in the My Settings menu at the top. The User Preferences form is made up of two pages. The first is the user page, which mostly contains non-modifiable information about your user, including contact info and LDAP settings. On this page, however, you can manually change your password at any time, as well as switch your role if you've been assigned multiple and don't want to log out and back in to make the change. Now to the meat of this video, the Preferences page. There are quite a few preferences, so while we'll get through a lot today, see our user's guide for information about any that I skip. First, let's talk about your entry screens, samples and patients. If your group is assigned multiple samples or patients entry forms, and you're adding samples or patients, you may be manually changing the form every time to one you actually need. Instead of doing that, speed up your work by setting your default entry screens to ones you always switch to. In that vein, perhaps you run into the same issue when you click Save on your sample and are returned to the list view. All of the data you just entered isn't there, because the list view format is set to one that doesn't have those fields, one you don't use, so you switch it. And then you want to view the aliquots, only to find that there's no data for those either, because you're looking at a different table and have to change the list view format again. The changes you make on the fly will retain for as long as you are logged into the system, but when you return the next day, your default list view formats will take precedence once again. So, to change these defaults, click the List Views tab on the Preferences page. Each type of list view format applicable to your edition of the software is displayed here. Set them all to appropriate list views for your day-to-day. Return to the General tab now, and let's talk about the default field for searching preference. This preference is most important when it comes to the quick search tool on the homepage, as it will designate what field this search uses. So, your default field for searching may be set to a field you never use, thus making your quick search useless. Fix that by setting your default field for searching to something you commonly search on. Bear in mind that this won't take effect until you log out and log back in. The next preference I want to discuss is the default group profile. If you've been assigned to multiple groups, but really only work in one most of the time, you can set your default to that primary group. Or, you can have the software ask you each time you log in. Don't worry though, you don't need the message. You can always change your group profile while logged in by opening the user menu I mentioned earlier and clicking Select Group Profile. Next, we have our freezer preferences, which, apart from one, all have to do with visual freezers. This includes Explore Freezers, Move Aliquots, and the Aliquots Entry Freezer Graphic. While all of these preferences are important, I want to focus on this one, the field to set colors in visual freezers. When you open a box in visual freezers, you'll begin seeing colors on all of your aliquots. These come from fields that have been configured to show specific colors when certain conditions are met. We call this color formatting. Any field can have color formatting, and the colors will appear on entry forms, list views, and visual freezers. However, in the two visual freezer tools, Move Aliquots and the Aliquots Entry Freezer Graphic, you will not be able to change what field to color your freezer by on the fly. This means that the color field you select in your preferences is much more important. If you want to understand what the colors in each field signify, ask your system admin, or if you have permission, you can view a field's color settings in Fields Configuration. Open Configuration, Data Entry and Display, and select Fields. Open the field you want to learn about, then click the Color tab. Finally, the last preference I want to mention is actually the first on the page, Records to Display at Login. If your daily workflow always begins with running a specific saved search, you can set that search to run immediately after you log in. So, Rather than starting on the home page, you can instead start with a list of records pertinent to your day-to-day. And that does it for today's video on user preferences. Again, there are some that I did not get to, so if you need more assistance, please consult our user's guide or contact our dedicated support staff. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you next time.